Hello beautiful people, welcome to the channel. The Witchy Goth here, hope you're doing well. Today's video, big trigger warning, a lot of sensitive topics being discussed in this video. You may want to skip this video or watch it at a later stage if you have experienced any form of abuse in a relationship. So please take care. There are some numbers in the description box below of contacts that you may want to reach out to if you feel affected by any of the issues that I discuss here today. Kiena Dawes was 23. She was a hairdresser from Fleetwood in Lancashire and had a 9-month-old baby girl. On the 22nd of July 2020, she was found by British Transport Police on a railway line in Barnacre near Garstang in Lancashire. She had removed herself from the earth. Kiena had a history of mental health problems, including EUPD, which is emotionally unstable personality disorder, also known as borderline personality disorder or BPD. She had experienced counselling in school and was diagnosed with anxiety and depression, as well as substance abuse and self-harming, for which she was admitted to hospital at one stage in her life. EUPD or BPD can create all of the mental health issues listed above, as well as being aggravated by stressful situations or other external influences. These can include things that happen suddenly, such as a family member being ill, a car breaking down on the way to work. Those sort of things can really exacerbate the sufferer's stress and anxiety. Turning to alcohol and other substances is one way of dealing with EUPD that sufferers think will help them. Self-harm and unaliving attempts are often a result of suffering feelings of extreme worthlessness. Perhaps they have a deep self-hatred and that there's no way out. Feelings of guilt as well for things that are not their fault. It's described as a personality disorder with the inability to adjust your behaviour, thinking, and to a pattern of situations or feelings, or sometimes even both. The DSM-5, which is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, explains BPD as a pervasive pattern of instability of interpersonal relationships, self-image, and affects and marked impulsivity, beginning in early adulthood and presents in a variety of contexts. So there are 9 criteria that the DSM-5 lists. They include frantic efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment, patterns of unstable and intense interpersonal relationships that are often characterized by extreme anger, idealization and devaluation, identity disturbance, which is all about self-image, that they lack a thought of themselves being a decent person, impulsivity that can be self-damaging, such as intercourse and substance abuse, spending recklessly, reckless driving, and binge eating or other eating habits. Recurrent unaliving behaviour is one of the main examples of what the person suffers. They may actually take action towards it or may talk about it. Also, self-harming. Affective instability due to reactivity of mood. For example, episodic dysphoria, irritability or anxiety, usually lasting a few hours but can last for a few days. Chronic feelings of emptiness and melancholy, loneliness, feeling that nobody can help them. inappropriate, intense anger and difficulty controlling anger, and then transient stress-related paranoid ideation or severe dissociative symptoms, being afraid that others are plotting against you, other people don't like you, unable to separate these thoughts from reality. So now that I've gone through a few of those examples, this may help you to understand how she came to this decision. Medication for this illness doesn't always work, and often CBT or DBT it's needed. That's diagnostical behavioural therapy, and it is one of the main therapies that psychologists and psychiatrists look at for helping somebody with that illness. And in fact, a fantastic book that I highly recommend is Borderline Personality Disorder Workbook by Daniel Fox. He has a YouTube channel as well. I will link it in the description box below, but it's, if you do feel that you have BPD, it has a section on it where you can fill in forms and work out if you do have those problems. Here in the UK though, these therapies, CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, and DBT, dialectical behavioural therapy, are not readily available unless you have funds to pay for them yourself. Sometimes it can take a while to get onto a waiting list to get into these kind of psychological help situations, and obviously not everyone can afford private therapy. Kiena was in a relationship with Ryan Wellings, and he was introduced to her by her brother, who later said that if he had known that Wellings was such a monster, he would never have introduced them. Wellings had previous convictions for battering an ex-partner, and whether Kiena knew this or not is not known. There is a register here in the United Kingdom called Clare's Law, where women can check out and see if their partners are on that list. It lists men who have been abusive in relationships, who have been reported to the police or have had convictions. However, it has to be accessed by the police, so you have to contact your local police station, possibly go in there, which means that, you know, it does, many women won't go to the police station, and also a lot of women aren't aware of this. So if you know of a woman who is in an abusive relationship, or you suspect they are, you may want to ask them to check out the name of their partner on Clare's Law. An abuser or narcissist will deliberately choose a partner whom they can manipulate and control, and that's exactly what Ryan Wellings did. Kiena, with her mental health problems, would have been one of those people. There is a specific pattern that the abuser follows: love bombing, gaslighting, manipulation and control, abuse, DARVO, which is deny, attack, reverse offender, victim blaming, and sometimes even going as far as unaliving their victim. The abuser will always pick the worst time to attack their victim, and in this case it was the anniversary of Kiena's father's passing. And many abusive men leave relationships during pregnancy or these difficult times. Let's say the partner is caring for a sick loved one or going through the passing of a loved one, and they do it because all of a sudden they're no longer the focus of attention in the woman's life. The abuse Kiena suffered was brutal, and please, you may want to skip the next couple of minutes here. It included slapping, ragging her by the hair, that's a term that we use in the UK. He once held a drill in front of her face, threatening to drill out her teeth. And he also threatened to throw acid on her. After she fell pregnant, he gave her a black eye. That phrase really annoys me, that he gave her a black eye, because it sounds like he gave her a gift, doesn't it? So he inflicted a black eye upon her. He criticised her weight, calling her fat, while he actually contacted escorts and prostitutes online. After the baby was born, he threatened Kiena with taking her daughter away if she told the police what was going on. And she declined to prosecute him, as is often the case of victims of DV, grape and SV, because the abuser often says they won't do it again, and the partner, the abusee, has been love bombed and gaslighted so many times that they believe that their partner, the abuser, is going to change their ways, and they feel this strong connection to them because of that gaslighting behavior. They feel they are to blame, and with Kiena's existing mental health problems, she would have really suffered. A lot of people who know somebody who is in that kind of relationship will say to them, why didn't you leave? And it's the psychological trauma bond that prevents that person from leaving. And that trauma bond can be so strong, and they expect that pattern of love bombing, gaslighting, and then abuse, and goes back to the same cycle. She didn't report Wellings after an attack where she needed hospital treatment. He was arrested and released on bail, but he broke his bail conditions, yet he was not locked up for that. So there was a failing around the law in this instance. Kiena felt let down by the police, and just 4 days later, she left her phone and her baby with a friend, taking her last journey to unalive herself. On her phone, she left a note stating, I was murdered, and that her partner had unalived her. She called him a monster and said, he ruined every bit of strength I had left. I had dreams, I had a future at one point, and that was taken away from me. In the court case against Wellings, the prosecution were trying to obtain a manslaughter conviction. However, that was overturned, which is really sad, because he chose her deliberately because of her problems. The allegations against Wellings were used to grind Kiena down, the prosecutors said. A witness for the prosecution, Dr. Nicholas Kennedy, he's a consultant psychiatrist quite well known in the field, said that in his opinion, if Wellings did act abusively, excuse me, it would have had a significant impact on her over time, and that it contributed to her own self-unaliving. The abuse she experienced would have caused her mental health to decline over time. And again, this comes back to that trauma bond and that constant cycle that the abusee experiences. The abuse by Wellings occurred 11 days before she removed herself from the earth. And as I say, it was on the anniversary of her father's funeral, not passing. Wellings claimed that the injury and abuse that she suffered was exaggerated, or it was untrue, or it was an accident. And he also claimed that he had attempted to restrain her. And that, again, is something that an abuser will do. They will put the victim into a headlock. And, you know, that can potentially cut off a person's blood supply and breath. And these often result in unaliving. The injuries were due to him trying to restrain her, trying to stop her, because she would have been reacting to him. And that comes back to Darvo, deny, attack, reverse offender, making her out to be the bad person, blaming her for his reactions. Why did you make me do this? Why do you always do this to me? Angela Dawes, Kiena's mother, said, "It breaks my heart that Kiena's beautiful baby doesn't have her mother here because of that monster. I truly hope that no other young lady or child has to go through what he did to my daughter." Unfortunately, as we all know, this kind of abuse and self-unaliving happens far too often. It is a disease that needs to be looked into and treated, and the help that is needed for the victims and for the abusers needs to be put in place. Kiena's grandma, Irene Ball, said Kiena had tried to reassure her that things were okay. She went on to say she was shocked when she saw the injuries to Kiena's beautiful face, and that she warned Kiena that one day he would really badly hurt her. She begged her not to go back to him, and so often that is the case. The victim returns back to the abuser through the trauma bond, through that controlling, manipulating behaviour that the abuser has. Judge Robert Altham said Miss Dawes was a popular, vivacious, friendly and kind young woman. She pleaded with you, Wellings, to stop hitting her, but you just carried on. You tried to persuade her that it was all her fault for upsetting you. Altham went on to say that Wellings knew of Kiena's mental health issues and called her names connected to her illness, and repeatedly told her that she may as well unalive herself. Wellings is the first defendant in England to face trial for the unlawful unaliving of his partner after herself unaliving due to DV. And I think that in itself speaks a lot, and that is a step forward in the right direction. I spoke about another case similar to this about Jade, who was in the army, who also unalived herself due to SV and DV that she had experienced. I'll link that in the description box below so you can go and have a watch of that video. He was sentenced to 6.5 years in prison for controlling and coercive behaviour and assault. He was, however, cleared of the manslaughter charge, which I already stated. He will serve half of his sentence in jail and the rest on licence, and that makes me so angry, because the length of punishment, I believe, for this kind of behaviour is too soft, too short, because he had already gone through charges of this kind of behaviour before, and this was his second time. And this is a person that is probably never going to change their behaviour. This is why it's so important that women who have been in previously abusive relationships use Clare's Law to their full advantage, because often the predator will sort of sniff out the weaknesses of that woman. Do the punishments need to be stronger? Well, I think so. And what other punishments should be given to an abuser? Like I said, this needs to stop. Not only are women not safe out on the streets, but we're not even safe in our own homes. My heart and blessings go out to Kiena and her family, and I hope that they are somehow able to heal from this. And I hope that Wellings gets what he deserves. If you've enjoyed the video, please click the like button. Please subscribe to the channel. Hope to see you next time. Blessed be.